3 more central banks cutting rates. The Royal Bank of Australia, a lot of speculation they could cut. Do you believe that we are the beginning of what could be a global rate race to the bottom?
Certainly looks like that, and the comments from Governor Orr from the RBNZ were very, very clear in indicating that the RBNZ is indeed making preparations for the implementation of unorthodox monetary policy, including negative rates. So, you know, if we are at the beginning of a more pronounced global downturn, when you have, for example, the ECB, who have yet to raise rates in the cycle since the great financial crisis, it's very, very clear that we're going into territory that is pretty much unprecedented, and the spread of negative rates is likely to widen further as we move forward.
Yeah, and you're talking about the Royal Bank of New Zealand, by the way. And, you know, Larry Summers, a name well known to our audience, came out and said that he believes the financial markets globally may be sort of on the shaky, and I'm summarizing, maybe on the shakiest ground since just before the financial crisis. Derek, would you agree with that? It's a strong statement.
It is a strong statement, but I think certainly if we continue along the road that we are currently on, and by that I mean a further escalation in the US-China trade conflict, I think in that backdrop, given where we are already, I think it's very, very likely that we are certainly going into a global situation like we haven't seen since the great financial crisis. And, you know, that spells trouble for currencies across the world versus the US dollar. And I think that's where we're likely to see more complaint from President Trump, because it seems very, very likely that the dollar is going to remain very elevated in those circumstances.
Yeah, and he can complain, but do you believe there's any situation out there, Derek, where the US dollar is going to fall when everybody is talking down their currency or actively cutting rates?
I think it's very, very difficult unless there's reason for the Fed to become far, far more aggressive in the implementation of monetary easing in the United States. I think essentially the best we can hope for is more dollar stability around current levels rather than any currency weakness, despite, you know, the currency manipulation move, the announcement from the White House and the US administration. You know, it lacks credibility to a degree to be citing China as a currency manipulator. And unless you have credible policies to tackle US dollar strength, and that must come from monetary policy at least, the likelihood is we're going to continue with a very strong dollar going forward for the time being.
Well, China de facto is a currency manipulator, Derek, but the irony is that they're probably manipulating it to the upside by fixing that peg at whatever 6.96% to 1 to the dollar. It doesn't matter what they fix it at. The bottom line is that they are fixing it, but the irony is that it would probably drop a lot more if it wasn't fixed.
Yes, exactly. And, you know, the complaint of the Trump administration is not entirely consistent because, of course, if you rewind back to, say, look at Mexico or to a lesser extent Canada during the speculation about potential tariffs being implemented during the negotiations of a new trade deal, dollar mex, of course, shot higher. And the normal free-floating reaction to the potential risk of tariffs is for that currency to adjust weaker to offset some of that lost competitiveness. And that ultimately is what is happening in China. So it's quite fundamental. And of course, as you said, if China did step away entirely, it's very, very likely that you would see dollar CNY shoot considerably higher than where we are today.